Okay, let's continue further. Having understood the three ways of passing the parameters, we'll now move on to the next topic, and that is using multiple arguments together. Okay, so at times in the function call, we can use all three ways of passing the parameters together. But if you try to do so, again, there is a rule in place. So we need to be vigilant, or we need to take care of the rules. Otherwise, you may face problem when it comes to using the multiple arguments in the function call. So the first rule is, whenever you are using multiple arguments together, the function call must contain a statement which has a positional first and then followed by the keyword argument. The first rule is the statement must contain a positional or required argument and then followed by the keyword or the named argument, which means the keyword or the named argument must always follow the positional or required argument. You cannot have keyword or named argument first followed by the required or positional argument. So in short, you should have positional first and then followed by the named keyword or the named argument. That's the rule number one. Rule number two is a keyword and the named argument must be from the required parameters which are defined in the function definition, right? So up in the function definition, as for the example, what are the required or positional parameters? You have 1, you have 2, right? So if you want to pass the parameters by keyword or the named arguments, the names must be from one of the positional or required parameters that are defined up there. Okay, that's understandable. Actually, it's not that complicated as such. So if you want to pass the parameter by the keyword or the named argument, the name which are specified in the function call, must be, it has to be from the parameters which are defined in the function definition. Okay, so that's the rule number 2. The rule number 3 is you cannot send two values for a same parameter. Okay, so one parameter as defined in the function definition cannot receive more than one value. We cannot send more than one values to the parameters which are defined up there. So which means up there you have print, so you cannot send two values. It could be a possibility if you try send a value for print on positional basis, okay, and then at the same time if you try to pass another value for print using the keyword named arguments, so you are trying to send two values, one through positional, one through keyword or named arguments for the print parameter. So this is something which you cannot do it. So these are the three rules. The first one is the statement must always have the positional or required followed by the keyword or the named arguments, right? And then the second one is the keyword or the named arguments. The names must be from the required or the positional parameters which are defined up in the function definition. And then thirdly, you cannot send more than one value for the parameters which are defined up there in the function definition, right? I hope you are clear with the rules. You can just go through the notes. Okay, let's take this question in order to feel more comfortable. Now the question is, I have function calls lined up here, 8 of them, and then we need to figure out individually whether each of these function calls are a valid call or not. So let's look at the first one. Okay, so just get rid of this hash. Okay, I'm calling the interest function, and then I'm sending, I have this. This is keyword or named argument, right? So I have two keyword or named arguments, right? So is this a valid call? This is very much a valid call. The non-default values like print and cc are supplied with the values through the keyword or named arguments, right? So this is very much a valid call, and I could afford to skip the values for time and rate because they have default values. So this is how you should answer the question. Non-default values are assigned the values through the named or the keyword arguments. Okay, this is called named or keyword arguments. Don't be confused with the default values. Default values are a part of the function definition. Okay, so these are the default values. These are very much a part of the function call. So let's save it and then run it. I should not. Oops, what happened? So just try to get rid of this. Okay, just save this and then run it. Okay, the program runs correctly fine, even though I don't have any output because I'm not using this with the print statement. So the fact that it doesn't report an error means that this is a valid call. Okay, so I hope you got this. I'll just enlarge this. Okay, now the next step is I'll just change this to hash and then, okay, let's read the second function call. Rate is equal to 0.12, print is equal to 5000, cc is equal to 4, right? So rate has a default value of 0.09, which is being replaced by 0.12. Print and cc are required arguments. They need values for sure, right? So you cannot skip. I can't skip for time because time has a default value of 2. I can't skip for rate, but even if I provide this, the new value will replace the old one. So I don't have any problems, right? And then print and cc, the non-default values are again being provided with the respective values through keyword or named arguments, right? So again, that should not be any problem. So if I just run this, okay, the program runs correctly, right? So can I close this? I don't think so. Okay. Now let's move on to the next third one. The third one is again cc is equal to 4, rate is equal to 0.12, print is equal to 5000. I can mess up the order, right? Even though print appears first here, cc appears second here. With the help of keyword or named arguments, I can mess up the order, right? Because I'm providing the name of the argument with the assigned values, right? And so it is through the name that the connection is established. So I don't need to worry about the order of print and cc, right? So no problem with print and cc, and then this rate, I'm again assigning a new value for rate, so this will override the old value of rate. So again, you should not have any problem, right? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, I'll just change this to comment and then let's check out the next one. What do we have? Okay, so again, 5000 is being assigned to print. Now this is based on positional argument or required argument, right? So I'm sending the value based on passing by the first method, which is the positional argument. So this passing of parameter is being done through the positional argument. Okay, 5000 is the first that it appears in the function call. Print is the first parameter that appears. So it takes place based on position, right? So you cannot skip it. So hence we can actually call it also as required, right? So 5000, is assigned to print, and then 3 goes to cc. No problem at all, and I can skip time because it has a default value. 0.05 will be the new value of rate, right? So when you save it and run it. So again, you will have no problem, right? So let's now go to the next one. Change this to hash, and then you have the next is interest rate is equal to 0.055,000, and then you have 3. Now this certainly has a problem. If you figure out, you're trying to pass the values based on position. Look here, 5,000, and then you have 3, right? But the problem here is the rule number 1 says you cannot have a statement in which the named argument, precedes named or keyword argument preceding the required argument or the positional argument. The rule number 1 says the keyword or the named argument must follow, it must be after the positional or required arguments, right? But here, I have just the opposite case. I have the keyword or the named arguments, and then followed by positional or required arguments, right? So this is a violation of the rule, right? So this cannot be a valid function call. And then if you just take an immediate look also, the way you are passing the values, it has to be based on position, but it's not. The print appears first up there, 5,000 appears second in the function call. So again, from that point of view also, this cannot be a valid call. So when you run this, let's see what do we have. Okay, I'll just read it for you. Positional argument follows the keyword argument. Positional argument like 5,003 are following the keyword arguments of rate. Hence, this is an error. Hence, this is a valid call, right? Okay, now let's move on to the next one. Okay, what do we have here? The interest. 5,000, print, 300, CC, and then 2. This looks good. Print is assigned with 5,000, but the problem here is principal amount again gets another value through the named or the keyword argument, right? So one through positional argument and another through keyword argument, right? So this function call is trying to assign 2 values for the print, so which is against the rule number 3. You cannot have 2 values for one required parameter, right? So when you run this, okay, we'll just save this, and then when you try to run, okay, save it, and then try to run this, you have an error message saying multiple values for arguments of print, right? So for the print, you are assigning 2 multiple values of 5,300, which is an error, right? So this is invalid call. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, what do we have here? 5,000 principal, 300 CC 2. 5,000 goes to principal. Look at this name. This is a keyword or named argument, but the parameter or the name that I'm using in the keyword argument or the named argument is not from the parameters which are defined in the function definition, right? So you don't have a variable called principal in the parameters list of the function definition, right? So again, even though this function call is trying to send 2 values, but again, if you look at this, the principal is a name which is not a valid name. Valid name means it's not one of the names listed in the parameters list of the function call, right? So that's the rule number 3. Okay, rule number 2, I think. Rule number 2, right? And then finally, we'll just try to run this and check. Okay, it says unexpected keyword called principal. So this is not a valid keyword. The keyword must be from the list of the parameters which are defined up in the function definition, right? And then finally, just change this to hash, and then what do you have here? Okay, save it. So 500 goes to principal, time, you have t, rate 0.05, but you are skipping the value for a required parameter of CC. Up there you have two required parameters or two positional arguments. The first one is print and CC. The values for these two parameters cannot be skipped. They are required. Hence, the alternative name for positional argument is required argument, right? So if you are asked to state the reason could be like you are skipping the value for the required parameter of CC. For principal, no problem, you are setting 500, but for CC, you're not setting any value, you are skipping it. So which means, you have an error here. So Control S, we try to run this. Okay, so the message that I get here is required positional argument. All right. Okay, so I hope you're clear with this. Now let's move on to the next topic. In a function, some of the functions they do return a value. Some of the functions they do not return a value, right? The functions that return a value is called non-void function, right? So if I just write here non-void function, all right? So non-void means empty. So this function is not void means this function has a value that is being returned back to the function call. Okay, void function means function which does not return a value, right? So it's pretty simple. Say, let's take an example of a non-void function, right? Let's come back to the first example, right? Say def, f of x and then, say return, return and then 2 multiplied by x plus 3. Okay, so and then we'll print the statement f of 1. Okay, so this is the first example, right? So this is an example of a non-void function because this particular function has a value which is being returned back to the function call, right? So when you run this, it's pretty simple, right? I made a mistake here. So if I send 1 here, I will get the answer of 5 here, right? So this is an example of a non-void function because this particular function does return a value. The example of void function is, it's simple, right? So say if I do something like this, print, if I just change this to print statement, all right, and then just look at this, I get rid of this, now this is an example of the void function. Now this time what's happening here is I make the function call and the function definition will calculate. It will calculate 2 multiplied by x plus 3 and then the result will be printed. So this is the end of the program. So the void function is a function which will not return a value back to the function, the call. Okay, so this is the difference between the two. The non-void function and then you have the void function, right? But one important thing to be noted is in the non-void function, for example, this is the non-void function, right? So whenever you make a function call, since the function definition is returning a value and that value which is being returned must be used in a statement. As of now, I'm using the returned value with the print statement. This is important. Or you can use it in the expression by comparing it with some other value, or you could use it in any kinds of expression. But the fact of the matter is, whenever such function, whenever a function returns a value, the returned value will replace the function call. See, this is the function call, right? And it goes up, and then 5. 5 is the value which is being returned, and that value 5 will replace the function call. So it's so important that you need to use the function call in the statement, because function call will be replaced by the returned value. The problem is, if you just leave it like this, it doesn't make any sense. The Python will report an error. Okay, you're calling the function, right, and the value is being returned, but you're not doing anything with the returned value. So it must be either used with a statement like print or assignment expression or relational expression, but you have to use it, right? So this is one important thing to be noted, right? Now let's say another important aspect could be, now I'll come up with one example here, say def, and then you have replicate. Okay, you have replicate, and then let's come up with the example of return and then $3 signs, right? Okay, and then what I do here is print and then the name of the function call. Okay, replicate. Okay, now look at this. I'll just save this. Now what's happening here is, again, you call the function and then this value is being returned, right? The value is being returned. Now if I execute this, it's simple and straight. You will get, the $3 signs, right? Now let's say I change this to comment, okay? I'll change the whole thing to comment, and then I'll make some little modification, all right? So this is how you change the multiple statements into the comments, by using 3 single quotes at the start and 3 single quotes at the end. Now let's say I have another variation, right? Replicate 1 this time, and then, now this is a non-void function. Let's have a void function, right? Let's have a void function, say print, and then you have $3 sign, okay? And then come out. So is this void function or non-void function? This is a void function because it doesn't return any value, right? And then I'll have this. Let's say if I have something like this, replicate 1, okay? Replicate 1, Control S. Now when I run this, let's check. What do we see here? Okay, weirdly, we see this value called none, okay? So when I call the function, what happens is, I call the function and the body executes, and then $3 sign is executed, right? But when I print the very function call, I get to see the none. So all in all, the non-void function for sure will return a value with the help of return statements. Void function will also return a value, but this value is a legal empty value of a Python, which is called none. It's a value, but it has nothing in it. Yes, things sound a little crazy, but at times, none is a very handy feature in order to help us implement some features in the program, right? So now this particular, the replicate 1 function is a void function. It doesn't return any value, right? Explicitly, it doesn't return any value, but implicitly, internally, it does return a value, okay? And the name of that value is a legal, Python empty value called none, right? So when you try to print the function call, it prints the none here. So it's evident, from this particular output that a special value of none is being returned from the void function to the main function call, right? So again, this is something which you need to take note of, right? And then finally, The last topic, okay, and then I'll wind up. Unlike the earlier programming languages where multiple values cannot be returned from the function definition to the function call, in the rest of the programming languages, only one value can be returned from the function call, function definition to the function call. But in Python programming languages, you can indeed return multiple values from function definition to function call, right? So we'll just try to work on this. Now let's say, I have def, and then let's take an example of arithmetic, okay, cat. So we'll send two values, right? So we'll send two values, A and B, alright? Okay? And then what we'll do is we'll return sum of A plus B and A minus B, the difference, A divided by B and A modulus of B, alright? So what's happening here is, unlike other programming languages, we are returning multiple values from the function definition to the function call, okay? Now let's say you have A is equal to 10, and then you can use the multiple. A comma B is equal to 20, and then you have 15. Oh, sorry. Okay. So the value of A is 20, the value of 15, the value of B is 15, right? Now let's call the function. Okay, let's call the function of arithmetic calculation, right? But in order to make the function call, I need to be careful because that function is returning, that particular function is returning multiple values. So I need to make sure that I receive it properly. Okay, so how many arguments are being returned? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I better have 4 arguments on the left side. Okay, sum, and then you have diff, you have division, and then you have mod equals. And then let's call the function of arithmetic calculation, right? And then send A and B, right? So A and B, logically they are different. This AB belongs to main part of the program, this AB belongs to the function definition. So we'll talk about the function scope in the next class. So now let's try to print, okay, the sum, and then you have the diff, you have the division, and then you have the mod, right? So let's see whether the program runs correctly or not. So let's check. Okay. How could I get the spelling wrong of print? Print. Okay, just run this. The source must be saved. I saved it, right? So 20 plus 15, is 35 will be assigned to, look at this. Now this is the function call, right? So once the function executes, it returns 4 values. Sum, difference, division, and then the mod. So all of the returned values are assigned to the variables which appear on the left side on orderly basis. Okay, so sum, when I print it, I'll get 35, which is correct. The difference is 5. The division is so and so number, and then 20 divided by 15, the remainder will be 5. Right? So this is how you could return multiple values from a function definition. This is a specialty in the Python programming language. Okay, there is another way to receive the values, or you can do it like this. You can have a tuple. Okay, you can have a tuple. The proof is if I just try to, okay, or maybe just use one variable and see if it's working or not. Okay, sum here, and then just get rid of this, like this. Okay. Whenever the function returns, you need to take note of this. Whenever the function returns, the values which are returned are prepared in the form of a tuple. So in the earlier example, I have actually unpacked the elements of tuple. Remember, that's the unpacking. We have done this in class 11. So the returned values of a plus b, a minus b, a divided by b, a plus and b are all part of a tuple. And then I unpacked the tuple, okay, into the variables like sum, diff, division, and homogeneous, right? So if we try like this, I think it should work. Say if I run this, do you see this? This is nothing but a tuple, right? So the 4 values which are being returned as a result of function call are assigned to sum. Okay, when I print the sum, this sum appears to be a tuple, right? So in a nutshell, when multiple values are returned from the function definition, the multiple values that are returned become a part of the tuple. Okay, so there are 2 ways to receive the multiple values. One is unpack the tuple. Another way is to just use a variable for the tuple itself, right? So with this, I've come to the end of today's video lesson. I hope you have understood, and you should understood without much of a problem, because we have time and again used function in many a time in the earlier the chapters, right? But this particular class is very important because we are looking at all possible angles of a function. Okay, so we'll continue in the next video lesson. Okay, till then, take care.